Hey everyone, let's talk Forza Horizon 5. We all know it's coming eventually, we know it'll be on the new Xbox Series X, and we know we probably have a while to wait. That's about it. But ever since Horizon 4 came out, I've kept a running list on my phone of things I'd like to see in the next Horizon title. So for this video, I figured I'd not only share my own list with you, but also ask you guys what your feature wish list is. So over the past day or so on my Discord server, I opened up a channel for everyone to throw in their suggestions, and you guys had a lot to say. It seems I was definitely not the only one with a list of ideas in their head. So let's get to it and speculate wildly about what Horizon 5 might look like. I've gone through all your suggestions, added in my own, and consolidated the list down to 90 different ideas over 9 categories. The categories are aesthetic car customization, performance car customization, major features, quality of life and minor features, racing, online experience, cars, map, and DLC. Now there's a lot of overlap between many of the ideas in these categories, so don't take it too strictly, it's more of a loose grouping of ideas. Alright, let's get right into category 1, aesthetic car customization. This basically covers the visual and audio customization we all want to see, and I think the big, obvious first wish here is for better engine sounds. This was definitely one of the most requested features, and for good reason. Horizon sounds just feel flat, inaccurate, and often reused. I feel like they were going for realism because they do actually record many of the engine sounds live, but the thing is, most of those are stock cars, and the audio mixing just never added much depth. Maybe they were trying to keep game file size down by compressing and reusing a lot of sounds, but it needs to change in Horizon 5. We all want to see more variety, richer and deeper sounds, and sounds that reflect the fact that our stock Acura Integra now has 800 horsepower and a big fat turbo on it. Alright, moving on, and this is a feature on my wishlist as well, underglow. I mean, come on, I know it's pretty old school tuner, but neons are making a comeback, and I want them. You guys want them too. The next feature on my wish list, and I didn't see anyone in the Discord mention this, but I know it's been requested in the past, is the ability to add decals and vinyls to car windows. This is an obvious upgrade to the livery editor that I think would make a huge difference. There are so many sports cars out there that have windshield banners or just stickers on the rear or side windows, and we need the ability to put them there in Forza. Next up, let's talk changes to Forza Aero. This one's pretty high on my list and was high up on your guys' lists as well. The two major updates we need are more general options for Forza Aero, more than just that one wing and that one front splitter, and a great idea that I saw somebody mention was the ability to morph the parts like back in Need for Speed Carbon. This would mean things like adjustable riser heights and angles and maybe even mounting locations, all stuff that doesn't need to necessarily be individually modeled for every car. You know, I understand why they do the default Forza Aero. It's pretty tough to model individual body kits for hundreds and hundreds of cars, so you need to have some kind of default one-size-fits-all options. But if you're able to expand on that one option, that goes a really long way for opening up customization. Moving on, another pretty highly requested feature was customizable exhaust tips. This one seems pretty obvious. I'm actually fairly surprised it's not already in Horizon by now, but just give us a couple options. We don't need crazy customization. Just a few selectable mufflers outside of the stock options would be plenty for me. And continuing on that idea, tunable exhaust sounds. Need for Speed Heat has this feature, and it's pretty great. You can adjust how deep and throaty it is, if it sounds stock or modified, and I think that would go a long way in Forza Horizon. Next up, and I feel this one's fairly important and fairly likely to come with Horizon 5, is a better livery editor. More quality of life and ease of use and a bit more feature depth would go a long way in helping the creative side of our community express that creativity even better, and the not so creative side still gets to reap the rewards by being able to put even cooler liveries on their cars. So from there, one of the features I've seen requested a lot on the Forza subreddit is the ability to have turn signals, turning on and off your lights, putting the top down in convertibles, and rolling up or down the windows. I'm pretty sure most, if not all of these, were options in the Test Drive Unlimited series, and they were kind of cool little immersion adding features in that series, but I'm gonna be honest, as much as I would like to see this, I feel like it would be really difficult to model this for every single car and would really increase the amount of work that devs have to do that could be focused on other stuff. So I'd love to see it, but realistically, I don't think it's that feasible. Alright, and to wrap up the aesthetic car customization category, I'm just going to quickfire a few more ideas that are pretty self-explanatory. People definitely want interior car customization, things like customizable seats or racing wheels. More third-party body kits would be awesome, and more rim choices, both for factory rims and aftermarket rims. Overall, audio and visual car customization was pretty high on everyone's list. I think it's pretty obvious that people just want more ways to customize cars and make them more their own. I definitely feel the devs' pain when you have a car list in the 700s by now, and it's tough to make individual car parts for each car, but give us just more default options, things like the underglow, window vinyls, exhaust tips, more stock things for Forza Aero. Those are all universal parts that will help us make our cars more unique and stand out from the crowd. So let's go ahead and move on to the next category, performance car customization. By far the biggest request here and one of the highest things on my personal list was for better performance index calculation, or PI, the little number by your class. Right now, the way we understand this to be calculated is that the game kind of takes your car on a virtual test track that's a conglomeration of every different environment and road surface that Forza has to offer. So there's no difference between the PI calculation for a rally car or a drift car or a street car. It also doesn't account at all for tuning adjustments, and it's important to note that it's how the AI drives, not how a human would drive. This just means that the overall class and PI system is not that accurate and leads to overpowered things like the bone shaker or the fact that all-wheel drive is pretty much always better. The PI system getting a refresh would mean a much healthier online meta and community, and would make it just more fun in general to tune and build cars. I could honestly spend a lot more time talking about this, but we've got a lot of stuff to get through, so let's move on. Stock wings should allow aero tuning. This is obvious. So many people have requested this, and I do think this one will probably come. People just don't like running the Forza aero. Sometimes they want to run the stock manufacturer aero, and they should still be able to tune downforce with that. Moving on, one of the more cool suggestions I saw that actually isn't something I thought about at all, but reminded me of Need for Speed Underground, was having an actual tuning track with selectable variables. So you wouldn't have any AI, but you could choose, what kind of environment you wanted, and could just run laps around this track and do live tuning to get a much better environment to tune your cars in. This would be awesome, and I actually do really hope this comes to the game. Alright, now let's go ahead and quickfire a few of the other more self-explanatory ones. People definitely want more engine swaps, and people want more suspension and tire options as well. Not just one rally tire or one rally suspension. Give us some more choices like a snow tire and race suspension with more angle, kind of things like that. Some folks just wanted more in-depth tuning stuff as well, like fuel mixture and timing and amount of boost. And although this stuff would be cool, I feel like it wouldn't add much to the game, because when you're going for performance and reliability isn't much of an issue, there's really only one best number. So there isn't a better air-fuel ratio for, a rally setup versus a track setup. It's just whatever your car runs best. And, with boost pressures, obviously you want to run as much as possible to get as much power, but at a certain point there's kind of an efficiency drop off. So I don't know. I mean, it would be fun and I'd like to see it anyway, but it's not something I find that important, and I don't think would add too much to the game. Alright, let's move on to category number 3, big features. A lot to talk about here, so we're going to kind of speed up the pace because I'm realizing we're already like 10 minutes into this video and only 3 categories in. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first one, drift rivals. This one's really high on my personal list. I really want to see this in the next game, a rivals mode for drift scoring. They can set horsepower limits, drivetrain limits, tire compound limits, or even just make it a very specific car like they did with a lot of the Rivals events in Horizon 4, but I want to see more competitive drifting. Moving on to probably one of the most popular features that has been requested, Spotify streaming, or just other music service streaming in general. I know this is probably a licensing issue or just the fact that they want to push their own services, but I'd love to see some more options in Horizon 5 for streaming our own background music. Next up, we've got another feature that a lot of people have kind of requested different ideas for, and the feature overall is something I really want to see improved, and that's car meets. I'd love to see things like themed car meets that are sanctioned by the game, timed car meets, kind of how they have the hourly Forzathon events. It would be awesome, so cool to be able to get out of your car and kind of move around in a parking lot and just walk and see other people's cars up close. Just give us those nice social features that make the game world feel more alive and more like a real car culture, because in reality, car meets are huge, and I love the ability to have an expanded car meet system. Next up, and this one kind of surprised me a bit, a lot of people wanted a better story. Now, Need for Speed is kind of known for its stories. They aren't the best, but they at least keep you kind of going and progressing through the game, and Forza Horizon 1 had a much stronger kind of backbone of a story and stronger characters that, again, just kind of progressed you through the game. Horizon 2, 3, and 4, though, kind of dropped that concept, and although there's a very thinly veiled, plot, there isn't much of a story, and the characters don't really do anything outside of just host styles of events or, host the Horizon stories. So I would love to see this. I would love to see a thicker, more in-depth story with real characters or rivals that follow you through the story, a more satisfying kind of wrap-up and conclusion to the story, and just kind of better rewards along the way. Something to just kind of keep you going and keep the motivation up through the game. Alright, next up, let's quick fire through kind of the rest of the more self-explanatory ideas. I feel bad doing this, pretty much all of these ideas could have full, 5 or 10 minute videos talking about them, but that's not the goal of this video. I just kind of want to give a big, nice overview of everything the players would like to see in the next game. So let's quick fire a couple other big features that would be great to see. VR support. That'd be awesome. Doubt it's happening, but would be awesome. Pink slip races. That would be a really fun way to play with friends or play online, risking your car or possibly getting something that's super rare. And then finally, something that would be amazing for me and a lot of others is a stronger video and replay editor. Give us the ability to fly the drone in replay mode, or just give us more replay cameras. There are a lot of ways you can expand on video editing and just increase production quality for everyone who makes content on the game. Alright, so let's move into category number 4, quality of life and small features. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean these are less important things. They're just kind of smaller changes to the game that could still have really big impact, and we're going to kind of go quickly through all of these just because they are more simple things. Probably one of the biggest feature requests I saw here was the ability to tag cars. Right now we can tag them as favorites, but let's be able to tag them as rally builds or road builds or drift builds. That would go a long way in helping us to organize our massive garages. Next up, it'd be great to see an overhaul to the auction house, make it more front and center, more important, more fun to search for cars on the auction house, and just less annoying sitting there and trying to snipe rare cars. And then give us the ability to gift cars to friends. I know they're a bit worried about, real world trading for real money, but there's gotta be a way they can get around that, because it'd be awesome to do things like car giveaways or just give a rare car to a friend and not have to worry about it getting sniped off the auction house. Next up, we've got more search options for leaderboards and rivals. Personally, I would love to be able to see whether or not a drift score was set using rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. I know we get some options, like you can see whether or not a person's using traction control, but let's expand on that and give more search options, and that's just going to add more healthy competition within the leaderboards, because there will be, in a way, mini leaderboards within that, top of all-wheel drive, top of rear-wheel drive, top in auto transmission, etc., etc. And moving on, better wheel support would be huge. I've definitely complained about this one quite a bit, and it surprises me that Forza Horizon has such bad wheel support. A better route creator with placeable and removable props and objects would be super cool to see, add a lot more variety to the races. Making factory options like the ABS and traction control or launch control car dependent instead of settings dependent. A lot of people have wanted this one in the past, and I would love to see some sort of at least optional setting for that. And then one that caught me by surprise, but I think is a really great idea, is to make the Forza Edition cars a lot more unique and a lot more iconic. There's definitely a few ways this can be done. I don't really know what the best way is, but driving around in a Forza Edition car should feel rare and unique. And right now, it kind of feels like they're just a dime a dozen. And then finally, a couple people suggested making money a much more valuable currency. This would be huge because, as most of you guys probably know, money is just no object in Forza once you get to a certain point. And I'd like to see that matter a bit more. It should be a big investment to do an engine or a drivetrain swap, or it should be a big investment to buy a new car. So that would be cool to see, and that kind of wraps up the quality of life and small features category. So moving into the racing category here, there's not too many different ideas to talk about, but there is one big one, and that's better AI. This means revamped drivatars, them picking more than like 4 different cars total, and then no more cheating physics. The initial concept for drivatars was awesome, taking a real player and then creating an AI version of them in a sense that learns and understands their driving patterns. So some drivers would be more aggressive, some more defensive, some would be faster and slower or take different racing lines, and that's kind of just all fallen apart. We don't really get any sense of difference between the different drivers, and the AI just kind of all feel the same. So I would love to see a revamped drivatar system. And on top of that, I don't know if this was a bug they just left in with Horizon 4, and maybe I didn't notice it so much with Horizon 3, but the drivatar AI really only ever pick from a very small handful of cars, it feels like. And that needs to change. It makes the AI races so dull and boring, and a lot of times the AI pick really bad cars for the type of race. So that definitely needs fixing, not too much to say there. And finally, the AI need to start driving with the same physics that we are. It's pretty clear that they're using a very simplified, kind of cheaty physics of their own that allows them to get almost limitless grip and limitless power, just depending on how well you're doing in every race. And I understand why they do that, but it just makes the race not fun and not fair. Tune up the difficulty of the AI, that's fine, but make sure they're using the same rules that we are, so it's rewarding when we beat them and feels fair when we don't. So to round out the racing category, people also asked for less free roam rush, or even just to make it not count towards the actual race score. Another suggestion that I thought was great was kind of a random car mode, so that people wouldn't be able to pick their cars before the race, it just dropped you in with something random. I think that would be a really fun way to do it and make it more skill based instead of just tune and car based. Seeing reverse layouts on tracks, I think they added this with the Lego DLC a bit, but it'd be cool to see it just kind of throughout, adds a little bit more variety. And then finally, a voting system for online races, so people can pick what track comes next, or what class, or what racing discipline. That would be great for making lobbies just more fun. And that brings us pretty smoothly into our next category, the online experience. Now, the biggest request here was for better netcode and more stable online connection. I've been pretty lucky with this, and it hasn't been too much of an issue for me, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a given that we will get a more consistent and better online connection, just because we are moving into the next console generation, so we'll be working with upgraded hardware. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, this is definitely something I have had an issue with. Make it easier to play with friends. It can be a huge pain to get all your friends in one lobby, or even just to play online and do online races with your buddies. That needs to be fixed by Horizon 5. And then kind of speaking of racing with friends, a lot of people wanted to see more lobby options, things like private lobbies, being able to set horsepower and tire limits or drivetrain limits, and being able to set up rivals events on custom routes. Now, this is something that would be huge for me, because right now I have kind of an unofficial rivals thing going on my official test track, but we all have to manage it through my Discord server, and there's no way to check cheating, and we have kind of had some issues with that. So it'd be really cool to get official rivals leaderboards for custom routes. That'd be awesome. And then speaking on cheating, crack down on cheaters. It's really obvious that cheating is a bit of an issue with this game if you just look at some of the leaderboards, because there are some scores or times that are so obviously hacked or bugged or whatever, and nothing really gets done about them that much. There needs to be more strict regulation with that kind of stuff, because it just makes the game look bad when you're trying to go for a world record and there's someone that set, a Goliath lap time in 4 seconds. Finally, for the online experience, and this kind of goes back to reworking the PI system, I'd love to see them do more aggressive car balancing, and just shaking up the meta more often. It's not very fun when there's a very small set of cars that are clearly overpowered and that just never changes for the life of the game. Shake up the meta more and do more aggressive car balancing post-release. Alright, so we're getting down to our final few categories here. The next one up being cars. Just asking kind of what styles of cars people want to see. And I think the biggest request was more regular cars. This is an obvious one. People just want to be able to either drive their own cars or take normal cars and just soup them up into these crazy 1,000 horsepower beasts. It's just kind of fun doing that. Next up, people definitely want to see more track spec cars, non-road legal, GT3 style kind of stuff. A lot of people actually wanted more Dodges. Buses was definitely a request from a few people. More Lexus. People really want Tesla back. And then this is kind of one on my own list here, is more car meet cars. And what I mean by that is if you were to go to a local car meet in real life, probably I'd say even up to half of the cars at that meet probably aren't in Horizon 4. It's just missing so many popular drivers' cars, tuner cars, kind of the big cars that people like to modify these days. It definitely has some, but there are so many missing that are honestly really popular cars in certain scenes. So I'd love to see more popular drivers' cars. And then finally, this isn't exactly a specific car request, more of just a request for the cars in general. One that really surprised me, even though it's something I do personally want. A lot of people want more realistic physics, more emphasis on the tuning, more weighty, more in line with real life. Although Motorsport has always been Forza's more sim-styled game and Horizon has been more arcade-focused, I think people want to see a closer merging of that physics model more towards the Motorsport side. Even Motorsport isn't the strictest sim in the world, and we know that they are working on better sim physics for Motorsport 8, so let's see that in Horizon as well. It can still be easy. It doesn't have to be full-blown sim difficulty. I mean, most people play on keyboards and Xbox controllers, so you can't really do a full one-to-one sim physics thing there, but it's still very possible to give us more realistic physics and more realistic consequences to our tuning and driving styles without giving the game too hard of a barrier to entry and kind of pushing out the more casual players that do want more of an arcade driving experience. Alright, let's move into our next category here, and that is the map. I think the big kind of elephant in the room here is the location. A lot of people want Japan, and quite a few people really don't want Japan. Personally, although I do think Japan would be a really cool setting, I'm very fine and almost happier if it's not. I do want something that's more exotic. We've gotten 2 games in Europe now, one in the US and one in Australia, and I would love to see a bit more of a branching out into a more exotic setting. There are, of course, a lot of locations that would make great spots for the Horizon Festival, but for me, as long as it's something unique and different, I'll be happy with it. Moving into what people are actually looking for in the map itself, tighter roads was definitely a big request. Less invisible walls, so there's kind of more exploration. They don't need to block off a lot of the big wilderness areas. People wanted a big highway loop. I think that probably has a lot to do with my recent video on the Shitoko Revival project and the fact that that's kind of been growing. Multi-story parking ramps. A lot of people wanted to see an oval track, a larger world in general. I do think we'll probably get that. And more fine detail to the roads. Make some smooth roads, some of them bumpy, some with cuts, some with ditches on the inside. Just give more variety to the road surfaces themselves. Gas stations was one that I actually didn't even realize. I don't think Horizon 4 really has gas stations, and that's a bit weird. So yeah, go ahead and bring those back. I know those were in Horizon 3. And then finally, people were looking for more elevation and more mountain roads. I'm all for that. Alright, and now this brings us to our final category here, the DLC category. What are people looking for after the launch of the game? The big thing was people want more value out of the DLC packs. That probably means, more cars, bigger maps, things like that. That's pretty fair to ask for, I feel. And then people want to see smaller track updates after launch, maybe like mini expansions to the main world, or just more officially sanctioned racing routes. The big one here for me is I really want to see the DLC maps able to connect to the mainland. That to me makes the DLC so much more valuable because it doesn't put it behind a separate loading screen and it just expands on the current world instead of just kind of giving you two separate game maps in one game. Finally, I think the consensus is in. People are done with the toy expansions. The Hot Wheels expansion was pretty well received, but people still definitely want another, real world expansion, I guess you can call it. And then the Lego expansion was just too much for a lot of people. And I know there are some of you out there that enjoyed it. More power to you, but at least for me personally and a couple people in the Discord here, they're done with the toy expansions. We want to see more real expansions that are more in line with the world of the main game. Whew, alright, that is 90 different ideas over 9 categories, and I promise that was even just slimming it down. There are a lot of things that I missed, some things that were kind of similar to other ideas, so if I did miss your idea, I'm sorry about that. So to close out this video, I do kind of want to end on a disclaimer of sorts and say that although this whole video has been about our big high hopes for Horizon 5 and kind of saying what we didn't like about Horizon 4, I loved Horizon 4 to death. I still do. I play it almost every day, and I cannot wait to see what Horizon 5 brings. Even if we get 10 of the 90 ideas in this video, I will be ecstatic. It can be really easy to look back at what you didn't like and get really high hopes and grand ideas for the future, but I really do have confidence in Playground Games, and I truly believe they're gonna knock Horizon 5 out of the park. So if you guys have any other ideas that were missed in this video, please throw them in the comments. I really want to see kind of what people are thinking and hoping for Horizon 5. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.